Hi, so here is my gallery walk sort of snapshot of the Google Classroom that I've created for my freshmen to potentially be used in the fall. And so the first thing I have is sort of that welcome message that we created, and it just sort of outlines what remote learning looks like and sort of my philosophy on what remote learning during a pandemic might look like. And so just kind of a note to welcome them to this platform. I created a section that has some different important documents. So the syllabus is posted. I've got my rubrics for the first unit. I've got our sort of department grading guide that kind of looks at sort of how we weight classes and a bunch of other things that I'm sure will be tweaked 17 times between now and the beginning of school. Something that I've been working on the last week is a Padlet where I've started to kind of house some of those resources I've been making in terms of different videos and PowerPoint kind of mini lessons, graphic organizers that I've used. Similarly, if there are like videos that I've used to teach that literary element, I included them there. So in addition to having them sort of weekly with the story that we're reading, just having sort of a central location to house them was something that was important. I also worked on trying to kind of create a unit's worth of interactive notebooks since I last talked to you guys. And so I've got kind of 8 weeks. And so what will happen is I give them 3 different prompts, reflection, a mentor text, and then an alternative genre, and they would choose one to complete. And so I was pretty happy to be able to do some of those. My next section that I'm looking at kind of has to do with the beginning of the year. I start with sort of this Dear Student letter that I had been kind of putting out weekly that I really liked. And so you can see I have sort of a greetings and just talking a little bit about my office hours, sort of the unprecedented time in history that they're all living in. But I also kind of created this quarantine routine and remote learning structure since, potentially they'll be sort of schooling from home. And so instead of organizing it by task, I sort of organized it by skill or tenant. And so it sort of tells them the activity that I want them to do and sort of hyperlinks whatever resources they need kind of in one place for them to kind of complete that. So practicing reading, writing, some sort of mini lesson study, craft, and share. I also included an example of a question of the week, which is something that I've been doing and want to continue doing. It's just kind of a quick point of contact with students. I had students that didn't do a lot of work for me, but were really conscious of doing that just so I knew they were okay and safe. And it's also a fun way to kind of get to know each other. Speaking of getting to know each other, here I was able to link the Google site that I made with all of those different getting to know you activities. And so that's right there. I also linked the independent site that I made for students kind of explore to get to sort of starting developing those independent reading habits. I additionally linked the Google form, which will be their first interactive notebook prompt and kind of walk them through that process. I also linked a bit, a trivia night. It was something that I did towards the end of the spring that I would like to bring back, especially at the beginning of the year when we're all kind of getting to know each other. But they just kind of log on, and then I use Kahoot to kind of get them started in terms of trivia. I love trivia, and it was a fun kind of community team building. In terms of the nuts and bolts sort of content of my course, I've created sort of the Padlet that I showed y'all in terms of setting. I did another one with plot and conflict with a Ray Bradbury story, all summer in a day. And then I also chose 2 texts from a book called Fresh Ink that kind of really prides itself on being bringing together a lot of diverse short stories. And so I've created 2 hyperdocs for 2 stories from that, one called Eraser Tattoo by Jason Reynolds, and one called Meet Cute, which is an LGBT text. And so I kind of created these hyper documents that kind of walk them through the process of reading and annotating those stories kind of using stations. And so I've been able to kind of link all of those different activities that I want them to do. I tried to add sort of an additional craft exercise since they'll be kind of working on those stories in their writing groups as well. And so I really liked that sort of structure and format. I have their assessments here as well in terms of the pre-assessment, that story they're working on, and that post-assessment. I did it in 5 minutes. I'm super excited. And if I know that was really fast, if there are things that you guys want to look at in a little more depth, please reach out. I'm totally down with sharing whatever I would be flattered to share whatever you might be interested in from this. So I hope it was enjoyable. I can't wait to watch the rest of yours. Thank you so much.